I think.
You were classified there, like as if you had a number on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what about your own background? If we would start with your own background. When were you born and what was your family background?
Well, I was born in 1929 and in Kilmurray, over here at the church grounds. And
Very holy.
well, not really. It was a teacher's house.
Yeah.
My mother was a teacher. She was teaching at St Mary's, and when she married, they moved there, and she stayed there until she gave up the job at St Mary's, and my father built this place here, built the house, and so that was where I started my first few years, playing on the road. There were no cars to worry about, no tar on the road either.
Yeah. So, what size of a family was it?
2 sisters and myself. Yes, but one of the sisters died when she was 5, meningitis, and she had a mastite to start with. Took her to Western Infirmary, and she didn't survive. No, she got scarlet fever when the MRSA of its day, sort of thing. In the hospital, she got that and died. And my other sister, Donalda, she died, but in the 1992, I think it was. She didn't do anything. Her sight was so poor, she couldn't work, and she'd stay with my mother here. Well, I wandered the world.
You made up for it, did you?
Yeah.
But
So that was my childhood, was there, playing around Kilmurray.
Yeah.
The cemetery was part of my playground, around the church and that sort of thing.
What about further back? How far back can you go that's associated here with Arisaig?
Oh, well, my father's father was Charles MacEachin. They lived at number 3, the Croft, in back of Keppoch. They call it Crochnafarry now. So that's where my father was born, in Crochnafarry. And he left from there to be a gamekeeper in Ullapool, up north, in Verlayle. He worked for who are they now? The Firth stainless steel people from Sheffield. They had the estate at that time.
Yeah.
He worked most of his life with. That's the only actual paid work he did, was there. And he retired in 1917. So we go back in big jumps. That's a bit makes it difficult.
Mm-hmm.
My father was born in 1864, so he was too old for the Boer War. He would have fancied going to that, but he was too old.
You must have been old when you were born.
Oh yes, he was. Yes, he'd be 60 something.
Yeah. Was that quite
65,
usual?
I suppose. Oh yes.
Yeah.
Especially at that time, I think after the First World War, even confirmed bachelors suddenly decided they would get married because there were so many women that had lost their partners or lost their boyfriends or husbands in the war. There was lots of people like that here. Mm. I'm not saying that's how it happened. But
what about your mother? Was she
She was a McVarish from Rue Farm, a big family of 10, and she was a teacher. Yeah. Well, the McVarishes, of course, they came from Moydart, from Annett Lochshiel originally. Nobody there nowadays. And 2 brothers came to back of Keppoch, John McVarish and Neil McVarish. Neil McVarish went to Brackra, and from him has come down the Brackra McVarish family. And John stayed in back of Keppoch, and his lot stayed here. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, we were just talking about how Arisaig used to be very much people who'd been here for long lengths of time.
Yes. Well, so, we go back a long way. I mean, I can go back to my grandfather Charles, as I said, at Crochnafarry. His father Ronald, he was in Keppoch for quite a while, and they were evicted from there, 1841, and went off to Canada with his family, went to Cape Breton, took them all over there, and 3 boys and 2 girls he had. 2 of the boys were lost out there. One was drowned in Lake Ainslie. One was lost in a snowstorm going to midnight mass. And I think they got disheartened. And going to Cape Breton in 1841, by that time most of the good land had been taken up. and they were on the sort of fringe farmland, harder to break into the forest and so on. I think he just got fed up with it, and he came home. So barring that, I would probably have been born in Cape Breton. We came back to Moss, the back of Keppoch.
Do you think it was easy for people who'd gone out there originally? Yeah. How easy would it then have been for them to come back in again? Because I mean,
not too easy, not too easy. But well, there's all sorts
in terms of sort of availability of crofts and such like.
Well, out there, of course, the best land was taken by the first settlers. That was obvious. They got their settlement of land. The ones that came later, when the potatoes failed here and everywhere else, in the 45, 46, a lot of people went out. But they were on the poor land. They had much harder work to do, clearing the forest out there. It's a dreadful place. The Cailliagruamach, as they call it, the miserable forest. And anyway, Ronald came back home with my grandfather Charles, and so I'm here, not in Cape Breton.
Yes.
Yeah.
So your own.
But of course he was able to do it. Put it this way, he had money. He was known. You find on the census he's known as an annuitant. Of course, people didn't have annuities in those days. People didn't have much money.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But
how did he have an annuity?
Well, the line is that you probably know that in 1826, Napoleon's fellow came along, Marshal MacDonald, came to visit his relatives in the islands, and he settled annuities on some of them, his close relatives. And that came down, well, of course my great-grandfather would have met him in 1826. He was born in 1775, so he was quite a grown-up chap by then. Yeah. And he met this Marshal MacDonald. And they had some money settled on them, annuities. I don't know how much it was. I've never been able to find out. But when it died out or what happened. But he's known as an annuitant in the census. And he was able to afford to bring his family home. Most of them, when they went, it was a one-way ticket, you couldn't get back.
And would that depend on if they'd fought in the Napoleonic Wars?
No.
Or was it just a family?
No, MacDonald was...
just a family thing? He
was MacEachin, actually. His father was the same name as me, Neil MacEachin, from Homeoor in South Uist. And no, he had good footwork. He fought for Napoleon, but when Napoleon was ousted and the monarchy came back, he changed sides a bit rapidly, and he kept his position and title and so on. And there's lots of, obviously, controversy about it all, but these are the simple facts that I know, that this was how Ronald had the money.
Yeah.
Able to.
So he was able to come back?
Come back, yes. And take one of the new crofts on Kinloyd. I think there were 16 of them, got crofts on Kinloyd. Then when he got a bit older, he moved in with his son at number 3. They died there. In 98, I think he died.
Gosh.
Yeah. So we're going these big jumps. My father, as I say, was born in 1864. His father was born in 1775. So next year I'll be celebrating the 200th birthday of my grandfather, you see. Yeah. Because he was born in 1810. Yeah. Sort of 5 years before Waterloo. That's my granddad.
Good grief.
So that's sort of, big leaps.
So when other people talk about generations, it tends to be sort of
we put 2 or 3 in. Yes, we sort of jump over them.
Yes, it must bring history much closer.
I find it quite funny, people talking about their granddads who were born in the 30s or something. Oh my God.
Yours was born in 1810.
Mine was born before the Battle of Waterloo. Yeah, he's probably born at Keppoch down here. Because my great-grandfather was at Soundick, across here. He was the second last occupant, I think, of the house there. That's the house where Machmeister Alistair, the poet, was for a while.
Whereabouts is that?
Soundick. That's across the bay there. Oh, it's due south of us here, just across the other side on the Loch Nua coast there. Lovely spot, yeah. And his father before that, Donald, he was born at Goochal. So we've been around quite a while.
Yeah.
That was Donald. And Donald's father was John, and he was at the Madara. And then
so you really died in the
war. Yes. There comes a point, as there does most of these things, when the people say, well, you weren't really MacEachins at all, you're MacLeans. That was brought in by Clanranald at some point for some reason or other.
Yeah. When would that have been?
It must have been the early 1600s. From Kingairloch. Out by Arsgaw, right that way. I mean, so we may have been MacLeans to start with, but I don't know about that. But we became MacEachins.
How easy would it be to check something like that? I mean, what kind of records do you have to... Is it sort of barded records?
There's quite a bit of stuff, yes. I haven't really gone into it all. I have started a family tree thing on the computer, and when I find time and all that to sit down. And there comes a point, of course, when records become very difficult, and it's just memory, things I've heard from the old people. Which
I suppose when your family do span such a wide range of generations, is possibly more easy to pass down records.
Well, with the big jumps, yes, they help.
You know, you do it like Chinese whispers, there's probably less links in between, so it's slightly more sort of likely to be the right account.
So we're mostly all here. My grandmother Gillis from Scamadale, and my mother's side again, the Camerons. So I'm Cameron Gillis.
Is that your middle name?
No, they give me a Spanish one, Philip. I can't think why. Yeah, I was born at the feast of St. Anne. Both my grandmothers were Annes. I think that might have something to do with it. And I married an Anne.
So the Gillis, your grandmother was a Gillis. Was that one of the sort of famous Scamadale Gillises?
We're not quite sure about it. In the local register, they say she came from Goochal, but I don't think that's correct. I think she was from Scamadale. Yeah. And on my mother's side again, the Camerons. They're from Gusachan, down Loch Shiel. So on that side I've got, they're quite a well-known family, they were. And one progenitor was a great preacher in the Wee Free Church, yes. I was one of the men of Soonert, as they were called, when they had the floating church on Loch Soonert. Yes, so we were Wee Free preacher as well.
Goodness, so you never have thought of that.
No, there you are. You can go in all sorts of directions, can't you? Once you take the four grandparents and shoot off.
Was this have been like a conversion by the Free Church?
It was one of the disruptions in the church. Yes. And the estate owner wouldn't let them use. They wouldn't let them use the conventional church, so they bought a boat. Yeah. And they anchored it in Loch Soonert, and they had the services on there. And say they used to be able to tell how many people were at the service by looking how far the boat was down in the water. You know. Yes, that was the Camerons, and of course some of them went to Canada as well, Cape Breton. My great grandfather, Alan Cameron, went to Mabou. I think a descendant of his was here not long ago, staying with Alistair MacLeod in Moore. Yeah.
I wonder if it's the same ones that... yes, I remember there's a piper.
I think he did, yes, yeah. I met him briefly. His father came to see me here and brought in the fiddle that his grandfather had taken out from Arisaig and played it awfully. Good old scrape and scratch.
Yeah.
So we're mostly off this area, we're mostly off here, you know, that's it. Gillis, Cameron, McVarish, MacEachin.
All the usual suspects.
Yeah, all the usual suspects.
Not so many McDonalds, but...
No McDonalds at all, strangely enough.
Yeah.
No.
So all that led up to you been born in 1929, and your mum
29. Did you say 39?
Oh.
God.
Could have been 39, I'm quite sure. So your mum was a teacher, she taught?
She taught up here, yes. And yes. Well, she taught in various schools all around here.
What was her maiden name? Sorry, Mrs.
She was Elizabeth McBarish. Known as Liza. Liza McBarish. And she taught at Brackra. Oh gosh. Lochorn, way up there. I can't remember now. What was the one over at...
there was one at Mewble, was there? Did she teach at Mewble?
Mewble, yes, she was at Mewble, yes. She was at Mewble.
Were these like side schools?
They moved around quite a lot, you know.
Were these side schools that
yes,
were just...
side schools, yes. Like the one over at... what do you call it? Where my heritage is?
Kinsaddle.
Kinsaddle. Under the bridge, under the railway bridge. Yeah. The foundations are still there. Yes. Yeah.
So what were the side schools all about? How did they function?
I don't really know how they were organised. I think they had to have a qualified teacher, but they also used the pupil teacher system. So that was people who had an aptitude for teaching, or thought they wanted to do it, could continue straight from school, stay on at school, and become a pupil teacher. And they were farmed out to various side schools. Some of them didn't last long. Some of them would last only maybe a couple of terms before they folded. Yeah. Yes.
It sounds like quite a good system, though, in many ways.
It was in the sense that there was hands-on teaching. There was but then of course they had to go away and do their studies either in Dundee or Edinburgh. That's where yes. But of course the Catholic schools here, there was a shortage of teachers. Of course. They used to come up from Mount Pleasant in Liverpool, which is a Catholic training college down there, and they used to have teachers coming up, teaching in this area here. I don't know why. Yeah.
I suppose it's maybe the Irish influence in Liverpool as well. There's been a lot of...
Yes, I suppose to be that. I remember one of them that was in Mora, Miss Thompson. She was married to my granduncle, Archibald McBarish, one of the McBarish brothers. He had Try Farm for a while, Cross Farm, and then he retired to Mora and built that house where McLean is now. You know, Tom McLean's?
Oh, yeah.
The big stone house there. That was built by Archie McBarish. And he bought the field in front so nobody would spoil his view. Crafty. Yeah, and this Jean Thompson was a teacher here, and she married Archie. Opened a little shop in Mora. She's at the little shop by the railway crossing. Yeah.
So that was your mum. She decided when was she born?
1887. She called herself a Jubilee baby. It was in Victoria's golden or one of the Jubilees. I don't know. It was a Jubilee baby. Yeah.
So then she met and married your father.
Yes. Don't know how he was away. Myself much of the time. He was a keeper up there in Allapool. Then he had a spell with Lochiel at Achnacarry as a keeper there. That was during the First World War. He sort of went back into it. He was shooting deer for all the various hospitals that were around for the wounded in the First World War. There was quite a few of them in the Highlands, where people were recuperating or whatever. And he used to go and shoot deer and supply meat.
Yeah. And at that time, when you were young, or sort of, any memories you have from before that, in terms of the sort of mallee fishing industry and the growth of mallee...
Mallee was a foreign country. It was too far away. Until you got big enough to have a bicycle, Mallee was a long way off. You went as far as Mora, it was an adventure. But I remember when I was quite young having to go over to get the batteries charged for the radios. You had to have a battery charged every fortnight. That was a trip to Malig. I can't remember who did it. Somewhere down on the pier. The wet battery, the accumulator.
Yes. Yeah.
That had to be taken over and charged up and brought back. So my trips to Mali, but otherwise it was foreign country. We didn't go there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And was there any fishing in Arisaig at that time? Would there have been much coming and going between the two communities?
Not organised. No, very little. I think the only people were Tainamara doing the lobsters and that sort of thing. They were established at that. But no.
And before that, when Roo was the point of sort of contact with the outside world for so long, did it have anything much to do with the herring industry in the sort of 19th century?
No.
Why would that have been?
I can't really say. By the MacMarriage went there in 1881 down to Roo, and it was still served by the boats then, by the MacBrains. All the goods came in for the area, but I've never had any mention of connection with fishing at all. Some of the staple diet stuff did come. They got their barrels of Braxy from Carlisle. Kept Braxy mutton, powerful stuff, and that came in at Roo. People would come and get it, collect it. But, no, not much mention at all about the fishing.
There seems to have been a sort of fishing station in Tarbert, in Loch Nevis. From what I can gather, there's not.
But that predates Malig.
Yes.
That's where they came in first of all, to Tarbert, and brought it over the track. Brought the herring in, with donkeys and things. Yes, over to Lochmora, then up to Lochmora. But, of course, this was part of the argument for the railway, wasn't it? For the railway coming to Malig rather than going down to Rochefort, which was Plan A, Rochefort. Can't think why. But yeah, the deputation went from here down to the House of Commons. MacMarriage was one of them, Donald MacMarriage, and Donald MacDonald from Gorstin, Ronald MacDonald from Bunnakeim, and I can't remember who was the Malig representative. And they went down with Sir Arthur Nicholson, the estate owner here, and they took their petition down, I think it was 1901, to the House of Commons for the railway to go to Malig, giving all the reasons why. The chap at Gorstin was a drover. He wanted availability to move his cattle and so on, and the fishing was starting to blossom in Malig. I think Donald MacMarriage was speaking for the local crofters and farmers.
So it wasn't just about the fishing?
No. The four that went down were representing 4 different aspects of life here, you know.
Yeah.
The people that did droving, there was 2 or 3 did droving. That's going out to the islands and buying cattle and taking them off to market. And the ordinary folk, the crofters over here, had their representative. And Malig. That was quite a big event in their lives. Went down to the big city.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
It's a long way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Must have helped.
Yeah.
Of course, Sir Arthur was connected with the House of Commons anyway. He'd been working there as a clerk to the Commons.
But I suppose it's unlikely without the fishing that the railway would have come, because presumably
I think the fishing would be the biggest pressure.
Yeah.
Yes. The fact that there was obviously so available, and that there were people were there who could do it, and because attempts had been made earlier here to start fishing industry. Lovett tried much earlier, but it didn't really take off.
How do you think
I don't know why. I don't think the people here were that keen on doing it. They didn't mind doing a bit of fishing round out the Skerries, but not as a commercial enterprise.
There seems to have been a very different culture between people from the East Coast, from
Oh,
fishing
yes.
communities
Oh
and
yes,
the West
yes,
Coast.
yes, yes. And the East Coast fisher folk who came, they were well, they were more expert in it. They knew more about it. So,
But there also seems to have been, particularly in sort of West Coast mainland Scotland and some parts of the Outer Isles, a real feeling that fisher was kind of a totally different class of people and something that they couldn't really associate themselves with. And
yes,
yet, on the other hand, there's Barra, which seems to manage to have combined both
yes,
fishing and
well,
crofting.
Barra
and
was a big
much
centre for the puffers, it certainly was. But again, the puffers were manned by East Coasters largely, I think. Yes, they had the expertise, they had the...
But even the women seem to have been able to get involved in the fishing industry as gutters in Barra, where you would very rarely find West Coast
you didn't
Highland
find it
women.
here at all. No.
Why do you
Nobody
think?
from Arisaig would go to Malling, down to what they used to call Chinatown in Malling, where the fisher ladies lived and worked. But nobody here would go over there to work. It wasn't done.
Why do you think that was?
I don't know why. Maybe they didn't. Perhaps they couldn't do it as quickly and as deftly as they could do it. I mean, they could get through a cran of heading in no time. But, so they employed people who were the best at the job. And the people of Arisaig weren't very good at it.
I find it strange. I mean, I think there's probably a very big cultural divide between, you know, if your background is, especially if your background is crofting or your background is...
Oh yes, yes. And all these, of course there was all this feeling of they were incomers too at that time, way back then. I mean, in my mother's time there were five black houses in Malling, that was about all. Malling was a place you didn't figure.
Yeah.
Mora was much more important than Brackera than Malling.
But even in times of poverty, people didn't turn to the fishing?
No.
Quite.
No. People fished for the pot. Everybody would have a dinghy here and go out and catch mackerel and lythe and staith and that sort of thing. My father went out a lot when that was in the 20s. He used to catch haddock and cod and things offering out there and flatfish. But being a gamekeeper, he was an expert too. I mean, he went out to catch the fish he wanted to get. One day he'd go to catch haddock, or one day he'd go to get flats, or and whatever surplus he had, he'd in a wheelbarrow, he'd just take them around the village, and people could help themselves. Because he just loved fishing. It was his life.
Yes.
I remember going up to school in the morning at 8:30. And seeing him coming in, he'd been out since 3 in the morning fishing out there. Yeah. Either that or up the lochs, the back of Crigmore, trout fishing.
And was that something that you continued? Did you?
Oh yes, yes. I've always got my rods. Yes, not getting much chance in the last few years, but yes, it's one of these things. It's in your blood, I suppose. Yes.
So I'm sorry, we keep veering off in different directions. I'm not very good at this.
Yes, you're on a very wide. You're on a very wide.
Wide remit. Well, I just want to pick your brains because you know so much. It's not even just your own background, but you have such a huge knowledge of a lot of the aspects of history in this area.
I suppose it was hearing so much from the older people that were around. When sitting in the kitchen up here, for instance, on a winter evening, and all the men would be coming, Charlie George, Johnny Duncan, a little man called Angus MacEachin, the mason from the village. They'd all be sitting in there, sitting around smoking their pipes, my mother tut-tutting and making tea, and yarning away. I would just sit in the corner and listen to all the chat.
Oh my goodness, if you could have had a tape recorder.
It'd be great, yes, that's what you really would like to hear. Yeah. It's all in Gaelic at that time, of course. We didn't use English in the house. No, they'd be sitting up there with a bucket of clams, and they sit the clams on the range, and the clam would open up, the kettle, and they pour some water into it and leave it for and they'd pass them round, that with their pipes, puffing away.
Gosh.
I don't think my mother approved entirely, but
So that was this quite a regular.
Oh
a
yeah, it was a regular
occurrence.
thing. Regular
Yes.
thing, yes. Because they'd be sitting and smoking and spitting.
Spitting at the range. was
Spitting
that-
at the range, and that used to fascinate me, how accurate they could be.
Was that to do with tobacco, or was it just?
Oh, tobacco all the time,
Maybe,
tobacco,
maybe they'd be
yes.
chewing it, or?
I had an uncle who did chew it, yes, yes, he chewed the tobacco. But the pipe was the thing, everybody, all the men smoked pipes. Yes. Walnut twist and boogie roll, and lovely smelling stuff, beautiful.
Yeah. So at that time, there was obviously, there was a very kind of Highland feel about Arisaig.
Oh
as a
yes,
village.
oh very much so, yes.
And
They would come on Cayley. Today a Cayley means something quite different. It means going to some event where there's music and singing and dancing or whatever. But then it was simply meeting, coming together. To be Cayley, to be together, So all these fellows would wander up and they'd sit in the kitchen, my mother they would make tea and pancakes or whatever, and they'd sit, smoke and talk.
yeah.
Yeah.
And not so far away, there was this completely other world of an East Coast fishing.
Oh yes,
village.
bustling, bustling.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh yes, very
So what would the interaction have been between the two?
Very
Because
little. Not a lot.
yeah.
As I say, it wasn't so easy to get there. You go in the train, there wasn't, or cycle there. That was it. And 9 miles, 18 miles return, a lot of pedalling.
Yeah.
I used to hate it anyway.
And I mean, I
Carrying
guess
that blooming battery and the bicycle.
heavy.
Yeah. I came off on the little break and went down to Mora River, pulled the front brake, went over the handlebars, smashed the battery, and of course there's sulfuric acid in that, And it wasn't very nice. I had to sit down by the river with my hand in the river. I was washing this.
Gosh. It's your
I
lucky
didn't-
you
I
didn't do
didn't
any
care for it.
permanent damage.
I didn't care for going to Malay. No. Except we had to have the radio. It was the lifeline when we were young. That was our, I don't know, to have the different music. That's what youngsters are always like that. They want the different music. We could listen to Athlone in Ireland or Hilversum in Holland. There was 2 big stations that played the pop music of the day sort of thing. Much more relaxed than the BBC, it's a bit stiff.
And when would this been?
Oh, that was the 30s.
Yeah.
That's in the 30s, yeah. There weren't many radios around, of course, and people didn't have a lot. I think my Uncle Alan owned Keppoch had the first one over there. Huge thing, huge box. And people used to come round in the evening to listen to the radio.
Yeah.
And or the big events like boxing matches or something, heavyweight boxing match from Madison Square Gardens, Joe Louis fighting so and so. Oh, I remember being over there at 4 in the morning to listen to, because that was the time difference thing, listen to the big boxing matches on this crackling radio. And a whole crowd of crofters all sitting around.
Listening to the
4 in the
boxing
morning,
from
yeah.
America.
Listen to the big fight, yeah. Yeah.
And what about, I believe there was cinema used to come
Oh,
here
yeah.
too. Would that include some news items?
There were treats. We had those school treats. We went to see the silent movies. Oh, yeah, it was great. Charlie Chaplin and Laurel and Hardy and Max Sennett films. Yeah, very good.
And where were
Either
they?
in the club room here, we called it the club room, or at the church, or down in the Astley Hall when we all walked down from school and sat on benches.
Yeah.
No chairs, just benches. And one of the ones that was quite up with it all was Pat McCarthy. Do you remember Pat McCarthy? Yes, down Lorindale Road. He had a projector, and of course there was no electricity, so they had to be manually driven.
Oh gosh, so you actually have
so
to
you had
sit
to
and-
turn a handle.
Goodness.
So by the time, sometimes you'd get a bit tired and it would go slower. Then you sort of, and then you'd think, we'll speed this up a bit, and you'd turn the handle a bit faster, and everything was whizzing around.
I don't suppose that mattered so much with
Oh,
the
no, we loved
silent
it.
films,
No,
but
we loved
when
it.
the talkies came in, it must have been.
The talkies, yes, that was something different, yes. But the silent ones were great.
Yeah.
We fell about laughing.
So
and I
when
think the first big thing was Snow White. We all went to see it in Fort William, and that was a huge event. You know, the train was packed going up to Fort William, coming back in the night train.
Yeah. When was that?
I can't remember when it was released. It must have been in the late 30s, before the war.
It must have been quite something to see colour.
Oh yes, yes, all magic, all magic.
Yeah. So is there anything else you remember from your childhood that's kind of, you had the war years here must have been quite, radio must have become quite important for that too.
Well, these are the big changes. It's when things change completely, aren't they? You've got one way of life and then you've got suddenly a different one. It's quite different. Before the wars. We were all right as kids because we didn't know very much of what was going on. But of course it was a time like it looked like we're heading for now. There wasn't much money around, there were very few jobs around. Here anybody who had a job on the railway, for instance, on the post, these were good steady jobs with a pension, but they were hard to come by. So a lot of people had to go away, they had to leave. And there wasn't much money about. People did the Wilks. I think they got 5 shillings a bag or something. And they talked about Horace Harper, the angel with the whiskers on. Horace Harper was the man in Billingsgate who bought the Wilks at that time. They went off in the train to Horace Harper. Yeah, but as I say, there wasn't much money around. And, but there's no real poverty in the sense that people managed. We're good at managing. But there's this terrible hangover from the First World War. All the ones that were lost, and the people didn't seem to marry anymore. The back of Keppel, all bachelors and spinsters. And they died as a result of that. You got this sort of brothers and sisters staying on in the croft, neither marrying, neither wanting the other to marry because one would have to leave and that sort of thing, and they're nowhere to go. So they just lived their lives out like that. And that's a lot of them. So that's the sort of social side of it. It was still had this black cloud of the First World War, really. And then just immediately after the war, 1919 turned up to 21, 22, they had that dreadful flu. I think I lost 2 granduncles and a grandaunt at least through that one. A lot of people died with that. And so really, the background wasn't a happy one. But at the same time, as kids, we had a great time, we enjoyed it. We had much more freedom than they have in school today. We could, if we did really wrong, we paid for it. We knew we would get the belt, but that was a simple punishment. We didn't mind it. It was quite a...
It's worth it sometimes.
Yeah. When we bunk off school in May, down to the sale, for instance, the cattle sale down at the front. So we'd always go down to watch the cattle sale. And so we would take the law into our own hands sometimes. Special times like when the 6-day trial came through here in the 30s. The motorbikes, and the day before a car would come through, and that was a rare enough sight. The car would come through and check out the programmes, along the way, and chuck to bundle up at the school there. We'd all get a catalogue to see who was riding and who was riding what, and the numbers. And we'd be looking out for someone like, we called him MacEachin, McIntyre.
We Max. Angus.
Angus's his father.
His father.
Angus's father, yes.
Yeah.
He was a great motorbike rider. And of course he was local. He was Malay, but to us at that time he was local enough. And so we'd have his number, and so we wouldn't go into class. We'd be out on the hill just old Simon MacDonald, the headmaster, would come out and ring the bell, but we would never mind that. And we'd wait for these marvellous bikes coming through. Yeah. Oh, they would go the Nortons and the BSAs and the Ariels. You'd hear them thundering around the village, coming up to school. Yeah. That little bump by the church there, they'd take off there. It really was. It was fantastic. And that's one of our treats. Every year we had the 6-day trial coming through. Pity they lost that, didn't it?
Yeah, well, when did that stop? So I didn't realise.
I don't know when, I think the war. I think they finished with the war, yeah. All of the, yes. From 41 there's a restricted area. They couldn't have riders coming from other places. Anyway, they're all called up and they were doing other things. As I say, 1939, that's when everything, so you moved into a different world. Mm-hmm. I remember going down in July 39 to England. We went, my mother, we went off on a pilgrimage to Lourdes, that's what it was. And that was fine. I saw my first aeroplane down there and all sorts of things. And when we came back, there were all these great balloons up everywhere. The barrage balloons had gone up. I didn't know what it was all about, but they were all very upset about it, and the war was coming. And as another day we all bunked off school when the troops arrived. The troop trains arrived up here at the station. Nice. And I've never seen so many people in my life. Yes, I don't know how the bush telegraph, all kids have it, don't they? We don't have mobile phones, but we found that this train was coming and the troops were coming and we were all up there at the station.
Why did they all come here?
They were going to try, first of all, but they were under canvas to start with. There was an awful lot of them. They came, when we went up to the station, the whole area was covered, all was just brown everywhere, khaki everywhere. And then they formed up on the road, Station Road, and they marched. And I think I should think the head of the column would be right down here, and they were still leaving the station. So that gives you, march, three abreast. Mm. And of course we went with them. And went up past the school and marched up beside them and chatted to them. And Simon, the headmaster, rang the bell and we kept marching right over to try. And then, as I say, everything was different then.
And where would all these guys have been from? Just all over the country?
Everywhere at that time, yeah. Well, originally they were just building up the permanent staff, the trainers, and that sort of getting it organised. These were the first ones. But after that it was a regular, we didn't bother. We came coming and going all the time. Yeah. This place was full of soldiers. I've seen them all sitting up the stairs there.
Did the army just requisition houses?
Towards the end, the colonel that was at Arisaig House, he was staying here with his wife and some of his staff. And we had a little bungalow at the back. We stayed in there. But the first part, it was, I don't know, there were troops everywhere. 200 or 300 were sitting around the house and in here. They used to go down to the hotel, and every vase and jug that my mother had, they would go down there and bring them up full of beer and have great parties. Yeah, that's when the commandos came. Yeah. Oh, they were a lively lot. The one that used to lie in the field in front here shooting the seagulls, he'd be lying on his back shooting seagulls. Oh, it was quite wild. It was a bit Wild West about it. There used to be a big Shell petrol sign down here at the corner, by the byre here. Because the hotel had a petrol pump at that time, down in the village. And that was a great target. As they came driving past in the trucks, they all had revolvers, of course, and then bang, 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 bang. There wasn't much left of the sign.
That should be a bit dangerous.
Oh, it was. It was extremely, yes. No health and safety about it. All the kids, we all had ammunition. We used to take the bullet out of the end and then wedge the cartridge part into a fence post or something, with a spike and a stone, and make it go off and bang. And we took the bullet out first, and then we wedge the shell and bang it off.
I believe there was also sort of tree houses in Arisaig Gardens.
Well,
they had lookout posts, or they had some...
Well, they had that sort of thing all round. Yeah. They had a Dutch village in the field below Arisaig House. You know the big bay at Arisaig House? Mm-hmm. And you come up onto the green there. That was a Dutch village they built. Yes. That's so they could practice their hand-to-hand fighting and so on. They would land on the beach and storm this village and riddle it.
So was it like a film set?
It was, yes. Yeah, lanes and things and little false fronts and of houses and doors. It dashed in and out. I got some of the wood after they finished. Thought I'd get some firewood out of it. Tried to saw it, and of course you couldn't. It was full of bullets. You kept scratching into lead bullet. Chuck it away then.
I hadn't heard of that. Yeah, I never heard of it.
Oh yes, that was the practice.
And as children, were you able to go down there, or was it very restricted, or did you?
Well, young boys are like, we could sneak off and we should be places where we shouldn't be, you know. Mm. Yeah, it is.
But yeah, it was quite an important area during the war. You must have.
Yes, it was. It was. There was very intensive training they did, too intensive sometimes. I think 6 died in 1 week in the training, because they used live ammunition. Mm. I saw one killed over there on the hill just down from Milburn. I was upstairs here in the bedroom watching the exercises that they were doing. I had my father's old stalking telescope, you know, and we used to watch them. And I saw this chap, obviously, it was a mortar shell came over and just fell down on his face. I thought, well, he's gone, you know.
Yeah, so it was serious.
I slept up here in the bedroom. At night, you would watch the tracer bullets crossing the loch. It's quite, you know, to and fro across the bay. Mm.
Quite unbelievable now. You
know, oh
yes.
Those
days must have been.
Yes, and the sheer numbers of people around.
And international as well. I remember speaking to
Poles, lots of Polish.
There was a Norwegian guy that I interviewed for the Westward, Johan Ronneberg, who had led the heavy water campaign, and he came back to Arisaig.
Is he the one who went on the first raid?
Yes, he was only about 17 at the time.
I remember that night. They had quite a party, and there's 100 or so around here, sitting out on the bank, and smoking and drinking, and they said, we'll be off in the morning. And so if I'd been a spy, I could have tipped off somebody that they were going to the Lofoten, I don't know where the hell that was, Lofoten Islands in Norway. And then the next day, all quiet, they're all gone. They were back about a week later. Because we got to know them quite well. Some of them came regularly for the tea. My mother was always baking tea, and the tea were never still. And one of them brought me a knife back from Norway, sheath knife that he'd taken from a German, and I had it for years. I've still got the sheath, but the knife got broken. Yeah. Yes. Oh, they were great lads.
As a teenager, though, to get something like that.
Oh yes. And of course, when they had the dances down here in the hall, they provided the music. Yeah. They had their own band, and before they went down to the hall to play, they would come up here to rehearse. So it was great fun. The whole sets of drums and all the instruments, clarinets and trombones and all, banging and playing away. In the Duke Ellington stuff, you know. In the Mood, you know, all these swing music. And they give concerts as well for the locals. There's one group, they call themselves the Arisaig Lovelies, and they wore tutus and danced, high-kicking dances. Oh, Arisaig hadn't seen anything like it, you know. So
the Arisaig Lovelies, what, they were men?
Yeah, oh, they were men, oh yes, they're all Scotties, yes, from Borrowdale. Yes, that was a scream. Yeah, sort of, before that, the concerts were quite staid, you know, in the hall. I hadn't seen anything like this. I mean, they used to go down there and there were lovely concerts and lovely singers like Tangsy's mother, Angus's mother, Angus MacDonald, and Marion from Barra, and several, you know, the ladies had lovely singing voices and all the old Gaelic songs. And everybody dressed up to go. You didn't, you know, and they still had the habit of the handkerchiefs, holding the handkerchiefs. So you had to have a very clean handkerchief when you went to the hall for the concert. They held the end. Each one held the end of the handkerchief. With your neighbour, and they kept time.
Oh.
So you have a whole ring like a row of washing, you know, as they kept keeping time with the tune.
Yes. And
of course all the men stamped their feet, and so you've got this rave. There's a rave going on.
A rave in Arisaig.
Yeah. But then of course the troops came and they sort of everything.
And was it, I mean, it would have been mainly men, but were there women that came?
No, I didn't see any at all. No. Don't remember any. No.
I remember speaking to Barbara Matheson about her experiences in the war.
She was an ambulance driver at one point. But I
think she was in the special operations. Well, that was the story. That was the story.
Yeah. She was a fanny, as they called them.
Yeah.
Nursing yeomanry, isn't it? They call it. Yes, but she wasn't around here. Whatever she was serving.
So
the SOE people, you didn't really see them. Right? You knew they were there because we had the permanent staff chaps coming in a lot. For one thing, my mother kept hundreds of hens out there, and she supplied them with eggs. And she got a regular income from it, and they brought down all the kitchen stuff, all the kitchen slops, you know, feeding the hens. So there'd be a truck would come down every day from Borrowdale, and they'd come in for tea, and then would come round later, and they'd bring their friends, and then the place, you know, next to no time it snowballed, you know. But there were advantages that we were tightly rationed for everything, but there was always an extra bit of tea would appear, or extra sugar, things like that. So
well, with the number of people that were coming in and out, it would be impossible for your parents to...
You couldn't have done it, no, you couldn't have done it. So that little extras like that came along. And I got sweets. Yeah. Oh, yes, well.
So
we were sort of, as youngsters, quite enjoying this. Everything is slackened as well. Mm. The sort of Victorian reins are getting a little bit looser.
I just this image of the soldiers in tutus and Arisaig.
Oh Lord.
But there must have been a bit of crossover with Malik with the troops, but also if there was dances, because certainly people in Malik talked about coming over.
Oh yes, yes.
So it was maybe.
Yes, and they had good musicians amongst them. They played. They had a very good band. And
do you remember who it was?
Playing? No, I can't remember. I remember some of the faces, but not the names. I think only one chap I remember that actually stayed on. I think he married in Skye, Willie Patterson. He was a barber. He used to cut my hair. cheap, free haircuts. Yeah.
So the troops were here, and there were dances, and there was probably a lot more life in the place than there had been before.
Yes.
So what about yourself? You were still at school at this point, obviously.
Yes.
Did you know what you were planning to do afterwards?
No.
Or
No.
How did you get on?
Very light. Well, they all spoke to my mother, and they were hoping that we'd all be over fairly soon, because I would be coming up to it, you know, fairly soon, to being called up. And I just missed out on that.
Yes, probably.
Missed out, yes.
Probably just as well.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you.
Oh, the daft ideas what we had. We forms came through. I think one of them yesterday actually. From what do you call it? We used the Palestine Police. That was one of the ones. To join the Palestine Police. I didn't fall for it.
Join the Palestine Police?
Oh yes, that was an organisation that was going at that time. Yes.
Goodness me.
Yeah. That's when they were trying to keep the Jews out of Israel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. When it was still a British.
Yes, that's right. It's when it was our protectorate.
Yes, the British protectorate. Yeah. But,
so you just missed being called up. You were what, 16 when the war finished? 15?
29, 59, yeah, 16, yeah. I think it was a couple of years before I was called up.
So where did you go to school?
I was called up 18.
Where did you go to high school?
I went to Fort Augustus Abbey.
Yeah.
So I had 5 years of the Benedictines. Yes.
How did you find that?
Very good. Hated it.
Good education.
Oh no, can't have that.
Oh,
I'm sorry, this is mine. Gluten.
well,
The gluten business, gluten free.
Otherwise I'll sit and...
Oh no, go on.
So you would be coming back during the
Oh
holidays?
yes, all the time, yes,
Rather than-
regularly, yes. Yep. What's that you're looking at?
I'm just looking to see if it's working. I think it is.
Oh,
I hope
that.
so.
Oh yes.
Is it still flashing?
It's doing something.
I'll put another tape in a minute. In fact, I might put another tape
What
in
is it?
just now.
A tape or what do you
It's a
call it,
little tape. Right, I'm going to change it.
I think myself, it's all the additives in the other foods.
I'm sure it must be because it's you know, like you're saying. I mean, the salt from, and I mean, Braxy meat, is that salted?
The Braxy was salted, yes. Yeah.
And would it have been the same sort of consistency of brine?
Oh, it'd be, oh,
as
yes,
the herring?
oh yes, you had to. I think they ran it under the water for 24 hours before they could eat it. Just rinse the salt out of it, really wash the meat.
So would your mother?
Desalinate.
Your mother would do that with meat
Yes.
as
oh
well?
yes. Yeah.
And then drop a potato.
Put the potato in to see that was preparing the brine.
Mm-hmm.
When the potato floated, you had sufficient salt in there to preserve the meat. I wouldn't like to have tried it, but then again, we did have things like sheep's head, which nobody has nowadays. Used to hate the smell when you had the hot iron to burning the hair off the sheep's head. It wasn't very nice. But when it went in the pot with some turnips, a big pot, and you could see the sheep's head going round and round, and it's quite funny when it's looking at you going round. It made a lovely soup. And of course, cod from Malig, cod's heads, made lovely soup stock. So all that kind of
Cod's head soup.
cod's head soup, it was good.
That's something I remember speaking to people in Wick about, and in Orkney.
And yeah,
But I didn't realise.
my mother
that
made
it
it
adhered
quite regularly. Yeah.
And what about herring? Was that a part of your diet?
Oh yes, herring, yes. Yes.
Would your mother
Ordinary
prepare
herring.
it, or would you get salt herring from Malig?
We'd get the salt herring from Malig, yes, when I was young, yeah. Probably earlier, before the First War, they would do their own because they caught herring every year in November up Loch Nanua, Loch Beik they call it. They used to put the nets across Loch Beik and get their stock of herring for the year, more or less. And that was a communal effort
Yeah.
from Ardnish and here.
How did people know that the herring were?
It was a regular run of it. It was just much more plentiful then. Like all the fish, more,
So you're saying it was a sort of communal thing, but how would they organise it amongst themselves? Would it be people on the shore with a net, or
they had the
little
boats? Ardnish people had the boats, and they would put the net across Loch Peak. And when the tide was full, as the tide went out, they would get the catch. Yeah. Well, that was a state, but that was just before my time. I don't remember. I was just told that this is what they did, and they got enough herring then to see them right through into the spring, and from November.
I remember hearing a very old story about there was a seminary in, I don't know if it was the one in Loch Morar, but the Morar Bay. They used to have a way of catching herring.
Oh, I'm sure they would have, because there's a good estuary there. Yes.
With the monks.
Yes.
But I can't remember exactly. Yeah. They used to have kind of keep nets, but they weren't nets. They're made out of stone. They had to kind of. Do you know anything about it?
Traps.
That's it.
The big traps. Yes. Yes.
How did they work?
I'm not sure how they did. What the technique for that was. They did a lot of that sort of. Even getting the seaware, they made traps for that as well. You see them down along the Roo Road, where they built looked like a dike going out. But that was to catch the seaweed, so they could take it up and put it on the lazy beds.
So, we've got you to the end of the war.
I haven't gone anywhere. It's too early in the day.
Should be sitting in the evening with a dram.
Yeah, that's more like that's when I can really bore people to death.
I'll come back.
Bore them into the second bottle.
I can't believe that. But so when you were at school, when did you leave, and what did you do when you first
I can't
left?
remember exactly now. I know I was 18. I had to go in the army. Everybody was called up. And,
but you obviously had a love for history, even as a boy.
Oh yes, one of my favourite subjects. Yes.
So
yes.
was that something you?
Yes, and did it right through. Taught it then afterwards. Yeah. Yes. But there again, you get these. Life goes like that in sort of chunks, and one chunk doesn't quite relate to the next somehow. Like I say, before the war, how different life was here. And then when the war came, with the rationing, all the troops here and all the happenings that you're hearing about all the time. And of course at school we did projects and things on the wall, and maps of, what the army was doing and all the rest of it, and all the lies we were told. And listening to Lord Ho-Ho at night on the radio. And even hearing the odd Germans coming over. German planes.
I mean, it must have felt like you were part of history.
Well, you don't know it at the time, do you? You don't know. It's all happening. Yes. The night they bombed the back of Craigmore up there, I was standing at the fence at the back watching the flashes, and I thought, well, that's a bit near. Yeah.
So were they aware that there was operations going on up here?
No, they were looking for the aluminium factory at Fort William. And they got their navigation a bit wrong, I think. They knocked supports out of the hills up by Loch Berridge there. And then there was a night the mine went off at Gorstian, a sea mine. I remember I'd been playing cards in the bungalow. I've been playing Patience by myself, I just picked the cards up and I was mixing them, and this thing went off. And they were all around the house, through them. It was like a noise like you'd never heard. It was terrible. One of these big sea mines, and came off Elenia down there. The whole house went.
Did anyone get hurt, or was it?
No, it was no. Two of them went off actually. One was back a Roo. Wasn't quite so loud for some reason. But the one at Gorstian didn't have to make it to jump.
And Gorstian's quite far from here.
Yeah, yes. Elenia. That's the island going out from Gorstian. Yeah. But as I say, life was almost compartmentalised, before the war, after, then going off into the army again, going out into the world, going to Germany, going to actually seeing them and meeting them, you know.
Gosh, what was that like?
Very strange. Very strange.
You know, having been sat here during
listening
the war
about
for
it,
so
listening
many
about
years.
it, yes, and then suddenly being out amongst them, and seeing the damage there as well. You know.
Did it change your opinion about German people, or did it?
It did a bit. It did a bit, because again there were such distinctions between them. The ones the Wehrmacht, the ordinary German soldier, wasn't much different to ourselves really. They were the nasty folk, the ones we had to look out for. Anybody over 6 foot tall would put very likely be SS, you know, Schutzstaffel, as they called them, and they had to be picked up as soon as they were spotted anywhere. They either had the tattoo on their shoulder, or they'd rubbed it off, or burnt it with a cigarette to get it off. But it was just, if there was a scar there, you knew that. So you put them in the wagon. They were taken away for questioning. But the other guys, they were. But we weren't nice to them. I can't say we were terribly nice to them. They were trying to be nice to us. We would do wicked things like walking down the streets 4 or 5 abreast on the pavement, making them go out on the road. And half smoking a cigarette and throwing it down, and they would go to pick it up because you put your foot on it. Really wicked things. But we're only youngsters, we're only kids. And we'd been indoctrinated, you might say, right through the war. We saw films here like Kill or Be Killed, you know. Big controversy about that one, whether we should be shown this or not. What to do if the Germans actually came here, and how you could kill them. You know, that was in your mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was a very real threat.
It was real, yeah, it was real. Don't pick up pencils off the road. You know, another one, because there'd be little bombs they could drop.
Yeah.
And other things like that.
And Kenneth Bird, who was Fugas, had links with Try as well, and did all the posters. But that was, was that First World War? Was it? No, it was Second World War.
Punch,
yes. Your country.
Yes, Mrs. That's right. Did he do the Kitchener one?
Yes, I think. Well,
I'm not sure. I don't know.
He didn't.
Fugas, wasn't it?
Yes,
Fugas. He did cartoons for Punch. Yeah, and then Mrs. Bird. She did these watercolours. Yeah, lovely work.
But it just, to me, looking at some of Fugas's pictures about the war and Walls Have Ears and all that sort of stuff.
Oh yes,
you know,
yes,
he did all these ones.
Yes, Walls Have Ears. Be like Dad, keep Mum. No, yeah. So that wouldn't go down today, would it? Be like Dad, keep Mum. Oh yes, you weren't supposed to talk about anything you saw to anybody. Yeah.
So those were the war years here, and then you went to do national service. What happened when you came out of the 2 years?
Like most people who came out, you didn't know where to go next, did you? That was it. I think I did 2 years, and that's quite a chunk, you know. They gave me the choice whether I wanted to stay on or not. I was quite fortunate in that I played rugby at school. It was a school game. I carried on with it in the army, and it got you all sorts of little favours, food-wise and everything. I played for the Rhine Army in Germany, and so you got a bit slightly privileged life. I did training and stuff when other people were doing square bashing or out on exercises or whatever. It was quite enjoyable. And I did a lot of boxing as well at that time. And I would be flown across from Dusseldorf to Aldershot for the competitions. And
Gosh.
yeah, it was quite good fun. Yeah.
You must have been very good.
So when they said, "Would you like to stay on?" I was quite tempted because it was getting into the life of it. You know, the army is a different life, but it's not bad once you get past the nasty bits, the initial training and all that. But I don't know when I got a hernia playing rugby. It was put me out of the game for a long time. They said, "Oh, we'll look after you. You can have your operation with us, and we'll send you to Switzerland to recuperate." I thought, not bad, you know. But my mother said, "Oh, you must get home. You must do something else. You must stay in the army." So I came home and went to Rigmore instead. Got patched up there. The old Rigmore, old spider huts and things. Yes, yeah, not very nice.
Do you think would you have made a different decision if it hadn't been for your mother? Or?
Probably. I don't know. It's hard to say. It's hard to say. Yeah.
So you came home. What did you?
No,
do?
I didn't. I was demobbed in Aldershot. I had a rail pass to come home, but I thought I wouldn't bother. And I went to live in Brighton for a while. I had an aunt down there. She had a flat, so I stayed there. Just to sort of get used to Civvy Street, as they call it, back to civilian life again. Don't know how long I stayed there. I came up here. And it's one of these stages then. You've done school, you didn't get to university because you were off square bashing. What do you do next? And it took a while to sort anything out. Back down to England. Went to Manchester eventually. Did teacher training and all that stuff there, the Manchester University. And teacher training and started teaching down there, Kingston on Thames. Kingston upon Thames.
So had you thought about teaching while you were...
No,
you know, as a,
don't
or
think
was it
so.
just something that...
I don't think so. But that's my mother's influence again. She'd been a teacher. It's a toss-up, I suppose. If my father had lived longer, he died in 1936. Well, I'd probably been a gamekeeper. I had a good life doing that. It would have suited me just as well as anything else. Yeah. In fact, I suppose a teacher in the south was a bit different.
I'm sure you had a different background from
a
most
teacher
of
who
the
passed for a
teachers.
gamekeeper. Yeah. Or a sheep shearer.
So was that was you? You never came back up here to live?
Oh, not when I say permanently, I can never say it, but anywhere. It can be a few months there, you know. That's permanent. I was here for a good chunk. So when the McValishes died out at Rue, it was to revert to the estate because it was a small holding, it wasn't a croft, hadn't been declared a croft. So it was to revert, and of course my mother was very upset. That was the family home, so she wanted me to do something about it. So I did, and quite a battle, of course, as one does, with the estate. I went to the land court in Edinburgh, and it was declared a croft, in which case it became security of tenure, if you like, you know, and the usual crofting rules. So that I took on there and put sheep on it and did sheep. Did all the usual sheep things. Yeah.
So you
I
would
quite
have had
enjoyed
to...
that. I actually made a living at it.
But I mean, you met Anne obviously at some
At Kingston, when my first job.
Yeah.
Yeah, went from Manchester down to Kingston, and she was starting. It was one of these old style schools where everybody from the primary right up to the secondary. She was in the primary school. That's happened there, yes.
So when was that? When did you meet?
God, it'd be 50s by then. Be 50s, 55, 56, 57, could be anywhere there.
You should know.
No, I don't. Not then. No, 57 probably.
But you brought up your family down south?
Yeah, they were born down there, yes. Because then I went back to Brighton. Quite liked it down there, with the sea. And Yes. First one was born there. Yes, and then they got a house in Surrey. Rented it for a while, bought it, and that's what we still have. That's why 2 beats here, backwards and forwards.
Yeah. So how many of your family did you have?
5.
You're 5.
5. And 16 grandchildren now.
Goodness me. And so how many of them are now living up here?
Oh Lord, a lot of them. And no, I can't imagine why. Well, I mean, I used to take them here up every holiday, up here, long drive, clapped out cars that you wondered whether they'd make it, you know, and but they obviously liked it more than I thought they'd. Yeah. And come here.
So was it 3 girls?
Of them.
How many?
3.
3 girls and 2 boys?
2 girls.
No.
Altogether 3 girls and 2 boys, yes. But 1 boy and 2 girls here now.
Yeah.
There's Fiona up here, just next door. Leslie at Rue.
Yeah.
And James is at Rue as well.
Yes.
So I divided Rue, I subdivided the croft. Because it's a pretty big croft, it's what, 280 acres. So it divides easily enough to get enough, a bit each.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that gave them the chance to
If they wanted to stay,
come back. So it was worth fighting.
So they've stayed, yeah.
Worth fighting for.
Yeah, yeah. So you can't really plan these things, they just happen. There's a limit to how much you can plan in life.
Yes.
It's things happen.
Sure.
Like Harold Macmillan said, it's events, dear boy. Events. What changes politics? Events.
So that's pretty much.
You went to Newcastle, didn't you? Did you?
No.
Thought you went. Where did you do your first part?
St Andrews. I was at St
Oh, it's
Andrews.
at St Andrews.
By the sea. And then I came up here. I was, I was quite
Yeah.
young.
Oh, I thought you'd done the southern one,
No.
the Geordie one.
No, Mum's in the borders now, but that's as close to the borders as we've got. But no, I've been here since I was pretty much since I was 19. So
What's Aberdeen like? University.
Aberdeen's okay. I think there's quite a few links with because it's the University of the Highlands and Islands that
Is there?
sort of.
Well,
like
yeah,
to do
well, that
with-
would be natural across the Grampian.
But Aberdeen's quite closely linked, so I mean, Aberdeen's not too bad.
One of my grandsons is starting there in September.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
What's he doing?
Economics, I think. The dreary one. The dreary subject.
Yeah.
Economics.
Quite important at this point in time, though, I
right.
suppose. It's
Yeah,
probably a very
They'll be
good
looking for a
time.
lot of new bankers, I think. Yes, I don't know how he's settled on that one. He's and Alec MacEachin from Kent.
Well, another
Sorry,
Scottish link.
He's moving this way too.
Yeah,
They're moving this direction.
yes.
Yes, there's strings, aren't there? There are strings that you don't realise attached to you and pull you back.
Definitely, I think so. I mean, to go back to the project again, you know, a lot of the people I've spoken to in Malik, they talk about going home for the holidays.
Oh yes, I do that.
They go home to the northeast, even
Yes,
though it was
yes,
maybe their grandparents
Yes,
that had come
yes,
to Malik.
yes, at
But
home.
because it was always referred to by their family as home,
Yes,
it's
yes,
remained
yes,
in the
yes,
vocabulary
yes.
as home.
Yes. Oh, it's just something you get. It's part of yourself, isn't it? It's
Yeah, identity is.
part of who you are, what you are. I was thinking, this boy, Alec, my grandson, well, I've got to go back to each generation before I go, we have an Alec, you know, Alec. Yes, Donald, John, Alec. And so he was at Race, what do you call that little place in Lochmora side?
I was going to say Reciprocal, but it's
Not Raceable, that's up, but
somewhere else altogether.
Raitland.
Oh,
It's empty now, isn't it? Raitland. Alec was there, Alec MacEachin was there, because he had to hide out there. That was during the time of Prince Charlie.
So you can go quite far back and
Oh yes,
Into
yes,
the
yes,
family history.
yes.
But in terms of this,
Yes.
the oral history project we're doing just now, which is, you know, we're trying to do as many interviews as we can. I'm interested in the way that the communities have kind of still remained quite separate in many ways, in the fishing and things like that. So. And Chinatown
don't you think
as well.
there's been, yes, a groundswell change? There's so many new people. I don't know many people here now. When I knew everybody and their families, and and you knew people by their patronymics. Everybody had their patron. You could go back 3 generations with everybody at one time. When the older people talked about me, they just put Mach onto it. Son of Neil Herlich Rood, Mach Neil Herlich Rood. I was son of Neil, son of Charles, son of Ronald. Yeah. It was just, and that's it. That immediately fixed you. They had to do that, of course. There's so many John MacDonalds and Angus MacDonald, and you had to see which one it was.
And I mean, a very basic difference between the communities would have been the language.
Oh, the language was very important. Very, very important. Yes.
And religion.
I think, yes, to a certain extent. Yes. Yeah, well, most of these state workers would be Protestant. But the locals also got work as gillies and things at certain times of the year when the stalking was on. So it wasn't hard and fast. People did have a chip about some things, so a lot of things, let's be honest. That bit after the war when they were, this business of a land fit for heroes, and they were all going to be given croft land when they came home, and they marked out the Torramore here, pegged out into sections. It all fell through. The rent was set so high none of them could pay it. So that was the end of that little game. Yeah.
So was that just was it just a kind of a ruse, or was it some?
Oh, it was that patriotic fervour and after the war, and they had to do something for all the returning warriors and so on. It did nothing. No, they all went back to their crofts and lived with their sisters and things like that. And ones who had made a mark for themselves too, like Charlie Gilliahane over in, he had won the military cross. Nobody ever speaks about these things.
Who was he?
Let me see now. Who's a contemporary of them? People die out so quickly. Lorna and Betty, have you ever come across them at Inverness? Lorna, they were at Kinloyd, teachers in Inverness. Lorna died fairly recently. She may have been buried here. And Betty is still around. Their uncle. And
so what was his surname?
MacDonald, Charles MacDonald.
What did you call him?
Charles Gilliahane. Charles Gilliahane. That means the boy himself. Gilliahane. Yeah. Came originally from Skye. Yeah. Because there was perhaps more come and go between Skye and Bacchus than would be with Malig. There was a ferry that used to run from Bacchus over to Arbasser once a week, I think.
And what was that for? Was that
I suppose
to do with the crofting and
yes,
animals?
they would bring hay over. I don't know which direction. They called it the Bata Fodder, the fodder boat, and it went from just below where Gep's croft is there in Bacchus.
I've heard of that one.
You haven't heard of those? It's a ferry that went over. I think they did once a week.
Until when would that?
Oh, that's before the First War.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
So that would have been probably predating Malig as well, was it?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Just,
would. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So the links changed considerably when Malig ended up being the
Oh,
terminal.
yes. Yes. The emphasis has gone in that direction because, well, it's demographics, isn't it? The population is bigger. That's how there's controversy with the surgery here. I mean, At one time, Malik would have come to Arisaig because Arisaig was the place, and now it's vice versa. Yeah.
So yes, I suppose there'd be, and there would have been this sort of natural rivalry. Was there football teams?
Oh yes, good football matches. Oh yes, Malik Stars playing Arisaig. Yes.
Do you remember any?
Oh yes, oh yes. You had to play over at the park, as Park Give Over, as they call it. I think the new road runs through it now, field over there. And oh yes, we used to go over there after school to see the matches, or down here at the mains. Oh, they were good.
And there were, because there were fishing teams as well, I believe.
I don't know. No, I don't know about that.
And women's teams.
Yes.
There was a women's football team
Oh, sure.
in the
Yes,
40s.
yes. I can't think of anybody from Arisaig playing in it. No. I don't think it'd be quite right.
Far too respectable in
Oh,
Arisaig
I
to
think
play
so,
football.
yeah.
Yeah. And obviously the links between Arisaig and Motor were much closer.
Yes. Well, as I say, just for instance, the whole McVarish clan that was at Brackra, they were relatives to the ones here, from two brothers. Yeah. They came in the early 1800s, don't know, 1810 about there, McVarishes came.
Where were they from originally?
Mingary. But originally from Annet. That's not the Annet up near Fort William, it's down Loch Shield.
Yeah.
But just before you come to Dalalea, that up the loch there.
It's nice down there.
Ah yes, and my Cameron people came from the other opposite it, in Cusahan. That's a nice place too. I think the Forestry Commission have it now.
But there are a number of people that moved from down that. Well, the Hendersons moved into Malik for the boat building and
Yes.
stuff like.
Yes.
But not very many families, I don't think. Would have. Are you wanting to get your lunch?
Oh,
Just about ready.
I'm going to pop up and see Fiona. Snack.
Right.
Is she at home today?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I might call back if that's okay at some point. But how long are you away for? Are you away for another couple of months?
I haven't a clue. I go and I come.
Yes.
Like the wind and the water.
Well, I think what I'll do is I'll compose a list of questions for you the next time.
Oh yes, you have to be a bit more, what's the word?
Prepared.
Not prepared, no.
Send me an email.
Oh yes, okay.
Eh?
Will you do that?
Yes.
What's that?
Email.
Send me an email.
Oh, I've got,
It's
yeah.
lowercase and MacEachin without the E.
What
And
E?
it's at yahoo.co.uk.
Okay. And is it Anne with an E or
Without an E.
MacEachin without the E?
And MacEachin with an I at the end of it, MacEachin.
Oh, okay.
That's in the phone book,
Do you want
isn't
me
it?
to scribble it down?
I've got a pen. I'll put it here.
Okay. And then you can just